somebody say once that it's not a matter of if you'll crash your drone, but when. And I thought to myself, that will never happen to me. Well, pride cometh before a fall. In June, I purchased a drone. I got a DJI Mavic Pro that I named Maverick. And boy, is this guy fun to fly. I was super nervous when I first got it and took my first flight around the farm, but pretty soon I gained confidence and really enjoyed flying this drone. Now, the reason I got a drone was for business. It was to be able to enhance my video production work, but also to take some really cool photos from a different kind of perspective, like this one I took in September of the Matthias family. I knew that because I was going to be flying the drone commercially, which means for money, that I would need to become a licensed drone pilot. And this means I needed to take a very difficult test through the FAA called Part 107. I took an online course, I studied like mad, and I actually passed with a 92 out of 100. You only need 70 to pass, so I was like really excited to get a 92. Now, there are a few reasons I went through all the trouble and expense of getting licensed, and the first is legality. I believe in doing everything in my business with integrity and legally, and sure, I might not have ever been caught or fined by the FAA, but I sleep better at night knowing that I'm in the clear. The next one was safety. Airspace is shared by planes with humans in them. And a lot of what I learned on the test was about airspaces where you can fly and where you can't fly, and about safe flying weather, and even just about the mindset that I should be in while flying, and the ways that I should be operating my drone that is optimal for safety. I'm actually kind of surprised that they allow people to fly drones without taking some kind of a test to show that they understand this information. Okay, so back to my story about crashing my drone. It was in July, and I was at my friend Andra's ranch in the mountains. She and her husband were riding their horses through this beautiful meadow surrounded by pine trees. I thought I would try out one of the Maverick's automatic fly modes called Spotlight, where you pick a subject and then the drone automatically flies around the subject. It is such a cool effect. But I'm not very good at math, and I'm standing there and I'm watching it, and I'm watching the screen, and I'm watching the drone, and all of a sudden I see that it's heading for a grove of pine trees. And the sound of a $1,000 drone hitting a pine tree is not one I ever want to hear again. It was like as it fell down the tree, and the blades were like hitting the branches and all of that. And so it stopped flying, obviously stopped making noise and falling, and we walked up to it, and I had this just sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it's so high up in this tree, it's like kind of above a ravine, that we couldn't get to it. And we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, not a lot of resources, no ladder that would be high enough. And so my friend's husband, Dan, said, well, why don't we poke it down? And I was like, oh, poke it down. I mean, that freaked me out too. And so then somebody else had the idea to get a blanket. And we'd put the blanket under the tree, and we'd all hold it, and he'd poke it down. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, there weren't really any other ways to get it down. So Dan went and found a really, really long branch, and somebody went and found a blanket, and he poked it down. It landed in the blanket, and I had my drone back. But then there's that, oh, what condition is it in? How damaged is it? Just that horrible feeling. And I look it over and I'm like, yeah, it actually doesn't look so bad. The camera wasn't damaged. There's some scuff marks on the blades. Blades are replaceable. They're like $10 a piece. And I was like, well, let's see if it flies. So I took it back over to the cabin, put it on its little landing takeoff pad, and it flew. And I thought, okay, let's see if it'll film. And it filmed. And so I dodged a major bullet that day, in that I crashed my drone and there was zero major damage to the drone. Okay, so I learned a couple of lessons from this experience. And the first one is to be really careful when flying in these automatic modes, and especially Spotlight or other modes where the camera is going to be going sideways, or the drone. These have object avoidance detectors when you're going forwards, not backwards, not sideways, just forward. So I actually earlier in the day had seen the drone like come up to a tree and stop when it was trying to come home to land. And so just to be really careful, you have a super open area if you're going to fly it in any kind of mode where object avoidance isn't available. The other lesson I learned is to not get overconfident about flying. Safety has to be the first consideration always when flying a drone. I am a much safer pilot since this happened. I am very careful about where I am and where I'm going and what obstacles might be in the way, and make sure I'm clear of people. I'm careful about flying around livestock. I always have been, but it's just one of those things where you have to think about all the parameters before, hitting the takeoff button. Finally, I'm going to leave you with some of my favorite drone footage and photos that I've taken so far. And if you're liking these videos, please like. If you're looking at this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Have a great day.